Have you been trying to make sure the IEP team members understand the benefits of inclusive education and trying to get consensus that your child needs to be included in general ed classes? Or is your child already included, but you just have this feeling in your gut that they're not learning as much as they could be? Well, today we're going to look at 3 things that teachers can do to change things up so all students with and without disabilities will be more successful in general education classrooms. So welcome. If you are here live or watching the replay, give us a shout out so I know that you're here and I can say hi to you. Before we jump into the content, let me give a quick intro. I'm Charmaine Tanner. I'm a parent, a retired teacher. I was both a special ed teacher and a classroom teacher. Now I do advocacy for parents, and I'm also the author of a #1 best-selling book on Amazon, The Art of Advocacy, A Parent's Guide to a Collaborative IEP Process. So if you don't have a copy of this for your advocacy toolkit, you can jump over to Amazon. The Kindle version is 99 cents. So that's pretty cool. So I see we have some people live with us, so give us a hi. The other thing I thought would be interesting is if you can think about the teacher or teachers that your child currently has. And in the comment box, type yes if you think your child's teacher is ready to jump in and try some different instructional strategies. So type in yes if you think your teacher's ready for some changes, or type not yet if you don't think your child's teacher is ready to embrace some new ways of doing things. So let's see how many yeses and how many not yets we get. And I'll give you a second to type them in there. And I think you would agree that when we can be proactive, that is a great place to be starting from. So think about it. Think if you knew ahead of time that your mother-in-law was coming to visit, wouldn't you appreciate that heads up? I know I would. I'd be like cleaning my house. So when we can come from a state of being proactive, that is it's a more positive place for us to start from. So I think if you look at teachers, they know to begin with that they're going to have a class full of diverse learners, right? They're going to have students that are performing on a variety of academic levels. They might have some students that are learning English as a second language. They have students that are like so thrilled and excited about coming to school and learning new things. And they might have students that are like so defeated and they just aren't motivated to do school work during every Monday or through Friday, right? Well, today's topic is universal design for learning. And we're going to look at those 3 things that teachers can do to change things up. But just like architects have figured out that if they're more proactive when they're designing buildings and they think about the variety of people who might be using those buildings, like mothers with strollers, people using wheelchairs, business people with their rolling briefcases, if they plan for that ahead of time when they design the building, it's much more cost effective and better than trying to retrofit and change the building after it's already constructed. Well, some teachers have figured out that when they're writing their lesson plans, that's a great time to be proactive too. So they can think ahead of time about that variety of learners they're going to have in their class. And they can start building lesson plans considering all the unique needs of students in their classroom. Instead of trying to, make accommodations and modifications on the fly. Because if truth be told, most accommodations and modifications happen just on the fly and aren't really thought out that well ahead of time. So, what are those 3 things that teachers can do to change things up? Let's look at number 1. So, like I said, these come from the education framework of universal design for learning. So let's show this first one. And we're going to do kind of a quick overview today of the 3 things. And then in the following weeks, we'll be going into each one of these in more depth. But the first thing that teachers can do is to have a variety of ways that they're going to present information to students. So not just lecturing. The second thing that they can do is to have a multitude of choices for students to be able to show what they already know and what they've learned. And the third thing that teachers can do to change things up is to make sure that they have ways that they're going to engage and motivate the students. So not just one, learning profile that they're going to address, but they look at the students' interests. So let's go in here and dive in. Let's look at that number 1 first. A variety of ways of presenting the information. So think of this. Pretend like you have just bought this really cool IKEA desk and you bring it home and you have to put it together. So are you the type of person that it's like, okay, let's get the directions, let's lay out all the little packages of screws and nuts and everything, and let's go through this step by step? Or if you're putting together this IKEA desk, would you be the type of person that it's like, I think, let's see if we can find a YouTube video that shows us how to do this? Or would you rather have somebody help you put the desk together? Or sometimes it's like, would you just rather pay somebody to put this IKEA piece of furniture together? So type in the comments, because this is participatory. What would you do if you were putting together this piece of furniture? Would you read the directions? Would you rather watch a YouTube video? Would you like somebody to help you? Would you just pay somebody to do it for you? No judgments, but write in the comments what you would want to do if you had to put this piece of furniture together. Well, just as we as adults have different ways of preferred learning, so do students. And that's what we want teachers to recognize. So think about this. If a teacher does a lot of lecturing to the class about the topics that they're learning, what type of student do you think that would be a good match for? Ooh, Courtney's here with us. Hey, Courtney. She says if she was putting together that IKEA furniture, her preference would be to read the directions. So thanks, Courtney. And even if you're watching the replay, type in what method you like to use the most when you're learning or having to do some new kind of task. So then the next thing is, what if the teacher does a lot of lecturing? She does a lot of oral presentations to the class. There are students that really thrive on that kind of presentation. So what kind of a student, what kind of a learning mode do you think students would have in order to be a good match to a teacher that does a lot of oral presentations? So type in the comments. And I know there's a little bit of a delay, so it can be a little confusing. Yes, so Courtney is saying an auditory learner. So, right, the teacher is talking, so kids that learn a lot by listening, that's going to be a great match for them. Well, how about teachers that love to put kids together in small groups, like cooperative learning groups? What type of a student do you think that would be a good match for? Kids that are working in small groups. Or how about if a teacher uses a lot of charts in the classroom, or pictures, or photographs, or visual schedules? What type of learner would that be a good match for? Most likely, more kids that enjoy or kind of learn through that visual mode, that would help them in the classroom. So I think you're seeing the point, right? That there are many different ways that you can present information to help teach kids new skills or concepts. Some of the ways that teachers are doing that are matching up to some of the students in their classroom. However, if the teacher has mainly one way of teaching, then there's so many other students sitting in the classroom that are not going to be as connected and are not going to be as successful, right? So the first, kind of principle of universal design for learning is to make sure that we have a variety of ways to present information. And yay, Courtney, she said, yeah, kids that are in small groups, they like that interactive discussion. Or kids that see all the charts and everything in the classroom, they're more visual. So as much as we can combine ways or change things up, and it's not like, for every single little thing, you have to present it in 9 different ways. But throughout the day, there should be ways that you're presenting information as a teacher that's going to match the children. And so you have a variety of kids in your class that learn in a variety of ways. So let's change it up and make sure we do that. Now, I want you to think back when you were in school, and I bet that you at some point in your schooling had to write a book report, right? Well, think about a book report. Now, if you were given the choice of, you can write a book report, you could act out a play that shows the events that happened in the story, or you could make a PowerPoint presentation about the book that you read, or make a collage of pictures that summarize all the things, that happened in the book. Which one would you pick? So type in the comments. Would you prefer to write a book, maybe make a video about it or a PowerPoint, do art around a collage, or draw pictures? Which would be your preference? So let's see what you think, because I think it would be cool to see how many people pick different things. So again, if you're here with us live, jump in and type in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, do the same thing, because I want to see what you guys are thinking. So Courtney says she would rather write the book report. So see, that's when we know that about Courtney. If she is one of our students in our classroom, we want to make sure that she has choices about what she's going to do to show us what she's learned about that book, what was interesting, what was exciting. And so sometimes as teachers, we're like, oh, writing a book report is so boring. We're going to make sure kids have all these other choices. And they leave out the choice of writing a book report. Well, there's kids like Courtney that would want to write it. So we've got to keep some of these strategies that we've used in the past, but also expand them and give kids other choices. So think about a teacher who requires a child to do a lot of writing in the class. So that would be a good match for what kind of student? If they had to write a lot. Generally, we think of students that maybe excel in the language arts area, written communication. Those kinds of kids or students would be great when given the task of writing a book report. How about if the teacher requires everybody to do an oral book report? Who is going to enjoy that? And maybe who would not want to get up in front of the class and do an oral book report? Or how about the teacher that asks every student to draw pictures of the important events in the book? So again, I think you see that when we ask students to do things and we give them very limited ways to show us what they know and what they've learned, that we're missing the boat and we're not allowing all the variety of learners in our classroom to be able to succeed. So we want, number one, a variety of ways to present the material and information. Number two, we want a multitude of ways that students can respond and show us what they've learned. And again, we're just doing a quick overview today. In the following weeks, we'll be diving in more deeply into each one of these topics. So Courtney says, and I forget, I could be showing your comments, Courtney. She says, I was very shy, so I wouldn't be comfortable giving a presentation. But others are natural performers, so they may enjoy that. Exactly, Courtney. Thank you. And Courtney, let us know if you're a teacher or a parent, because most often we have parents that join us, but I'm also encouraging teachers to come on to our shows, because I think the more that we work together, the stronger our connections will be, and we can move forward more quickly and make good change for kids. So Courtney, let me know if you're a parent or a teacher, because I love your ideas. So the third thing that teachers can do to change things up are, drum roll, different ways that the teacher can engage the learner. Because if students aren't motivated and really actively participating, then chances are they're not going to be learning as much. So Courtney says that, oh, I'm a parent, but I was a teacher. So right on. We need a group of retired teachers who are also parents. And, when I talk about having kids be engaged in learning and actively participating, I also want us to keep kind of in the back of our mind that some kids don't look like they're focused. They might not have eye contact with the teacher, or they may be doodling while the teacher is lecturing. And we can't assume that those behaviors mean that the child isn't, following along and still soaking up that information. However, one of the things that I would love to see in classrooms and for teachers to be able to do more is to be able to really know the strengths and the interests of each of those students. Some teachers do this at the beginning of the year by sending home, kind of a checklist for parents to, fill out so the teacher has more information about the child. If that doesn't happen, as a parent, you can be proactive at the beginning of the year and send in some, short descriptions of your child and what they're interested in. So I want you to think if, even if you're watching the replay, I hope that you participate and type in the comments what some of your interests and hobbies are. So let's take a minute to think about things that you are interested in. Not your child, but what are some of your interests and hobbies? So let me take a quick drink and you guys type that in the comments. Because what I want to do is I want to find out at least one example of an interest or a hobby or something that you really enjoy, so we can look at how we could take that interest and help students learn more things. So while you're typing that in, I'll give you an example that I had thought of is if we know a student is really interested in karate, has been taking karate lessons, that's like one of the things that he or she is like the most excited about as far as after school on Wednesdays, I get to take my karate lessons. So for some teachers, it might be like, wow, that's great. The child loves karate. So yeah, thank you. But what we want teachers to do is make a connection between knowing what your child is interested in and how that can inform their instruction. So if I have a student in my classroom and I know they enjoy karate, what are some of the things that I could use? As far as when I'm teaching that student math, how could I bring in karate? So one of the ways that you can do that is through story problems, right? I mean, you could talk about, how many boards the student has to, stack up in order to break. And if they break in half, then how many boards are they going to have? Excuse me. That cold season is here. So math, I could teach math around karate. Or I could do something like if we're working on time, I could say, what time does your karate lesson start? What time do your lessons end? How long of a time period is that? Or if you're there 5 minutes late, how much time are you really going to have on your karate lesson that day? So the idea is to take what kids are interested in and use that as something that you can bring into the classroom. So how about if you know the child's interested in karate, how is that going to help you with reading? Well, probably an obvious one is have your child or have that student read books about karate, maybe the history of karate, or, they could research for their research project, the different kinds of karate that there are. I think there's different kinds. I don't know much about karate. But what I'm trying to show you is there's a multitude of ways that we can help kids get motivated and engaged if we use their interests. Or maybe they could make up a song about the different karate moves. Or when they go to PE class, there could be a special time where the student demonstrates their karate moves that they've learned and help other students go through some basic moves. So when we have teachers looking for ways that they can engage students, all the students with and without disabilities are going to be happier and learning more side by side with their friends. So we all recognize that it can be a challenge to get all the IEP members to reach consensus that your child needs to be included in general ed classes. And we know it can be a challenge when we ask teachers to do something different than what they're used to doing, right? However, I think we looked at today's solution could be if more schools adopt the principles of universal design for learning. Because when we use universal design for learning, we're tapping into how students learn best. We're tapping into how they can show us what they know. And we're also really recognizing the interest that they have and spending some time reflecting on that and looking at ways that we can incorporate that into our classes. So I hope you've enjoyed this short overview of universal design for learning, 3 things that teachers can do to change things up. If you found this video helpful, make sure you press the share button and share it on your Facebook page for others. Next Thursday, our regular day, Thursday, February 15th, we're going to look at more in depth the first part of universal design for learning, which is how teachers present information. And we're going to actually pick some skills or some academic topics, and we're going to talk about the 9 different ways that teachers could teach that skill. And you might be asking, why 9 different ways? Well, that's because there's 9 different types of intelligences. And I really am a proponent of making sure we tap into all of those types of intelligences that we see in our kids in our classrooms. So until next Thursday, I'm Charmaine Tanner. I'm passionate about helping you become even a more effective advocate for your children or students so they're safe, happy, and learning more each day with their friends in the classroom. So until next Thursday, take care, and I shall see you then. Bye-bye.